I'm going to explain three major threats currently circulating in intelligence community discussions regarding the stability of the United States. Does this have anything to do with Canada? Well, most likely yes, because as neighbors sharing the world's longest undefended border, it's important that we pay attention to these major threats and developments in the US, as any significant disruption could cross into Canada. So the first one I'm going to mention is domestic conflict and state secession. The first concern involves the potential for a civil war, driven by states attempting to secede and close off their borders. There's a growing worry that certain regions could attempt to break away from federal control, effectively shutting down internal transit and trade. And while full-scale civil wars is usually seen as the least likely of these major threats, possibly because of the humanitarian consequences, which would be horrific, it remains a scenario that security experts are forced to monitor. So in Canada, we should be aware that any internal collapse or rapid border closures in the US would immediately impact our own supply chains and national security. And given the current political climate, some argue that this kind of conflict wouldn't last very long, but the mere possibility of state-level secession means that we should all be thinking about our own regional resilience and how we would navigate a sudden shift in domestic stability. Now, the second threat is the possibility of a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, an EMP shock, and this attack done by Iran. All of us are aware that Iran has made many threats to the US. Therefore, many of us are also aware that, or rather furthermore, some of us are aware that thanks to the adversaries they work with, like China and Russia, they could launch an EMP so large that it would send North America back into the Stone Age. And this would be devastating to both America and Canada as well. Of course, they wouldn't do this with one strike. It would require multiple strikes in different areas. But it wouldn't just be the US. So while we can hope that the first threat of a civil war can remain unlikely, the EMP threat from Iran is a doubtless possibility. They are probing and testing it. They have been probing and testing it for years, and they're doing so today. So Canadians should prepare too, because the nature of an EMP attack is that it acts like an enormous invisible bomb that blows out all electrical devices in the span of thousands of kilometers. And this isn't just the power grid. The radiation of an EMP can also affect unplugged electronics like cell phones and in some cases the computer systems in cars. So that means it doesn't respect national borders. It's so widespread, and since much of the Canadian electrical grid is physically connected with the US grid, an EMP striking the northeastern part of Canada, or America, for example, would almost certainly take out Ontario and Quebec, their power as well. Now, as of this year, intelligence agencies have warned that Canada is a likely target for Iranian cyber attacks and reprisals because of our public support in recent US and Israeli military events and actions. And compared to an EMP strike, a cyber sabotage of the grid is considered a much more immediate threat. Now for the third threat. This is foreign sleeper agents crossing the Mexican border and gaining access to North American power grids and water systems. Right now, America is completely unable to keep track of these sleeper agents who are swarming into the United States. So this is a tremendous problem. It's not difficult anymore to get a North Korean agent or a Russian agent, a Chinese agent, or a Cuban one into America. These agents are simply being sent to the border and walking through like everyone else. So they are spreading out to the different states with the intent to shut down the electrical grid and water supply, to shut down the water supply or to poison it. And even though they could just hack these systems that manage our power and water, they're making sure that their plans follow through by keeping these agents near the stations physically. So taking out a group of transformers would be devastating because it takes forever to get them fixed or to order new ones from overseas. So we have to understand now that when this happens, it would mean many months without these basic resources. These agents are already here, spreading across North America. So we need to work on our prepping storage now. So the most likely threats are a large scale blackout and a down power grid and water supply. But regardless of the type of attack, the results will be the same. The power will go out, or something will happen to our water. So aim to accumulate a year's supply of food and water and other utilities like power generators. Storing 300 gallons of water and different kinds of filters is an excellent baseline. Or ideally, to have a secondary source like a well or a pond or a creek. The average person needs about a gallon of water per day. So that's about 300 to 365 gallons of water. It sounds like a lot, but that's what's needed for a year's supply. And if you have family members, if you have a family, it's going to be even more. And that's why you need perhaps a second source like a well or a creek. And then you need lots of filters to filter all that water. And different kinds of filters. Gravity filters are great for long-term storage. And then portable filters are good for creeks and when you're on the go. As for generating your own power, why not get all three? There are solar generators, there are even propane generators, and of course there are gas generators. So see my previous videos on basic prepping supplies and reasons you need to prep for a detailed list of prepping resources. So that's all for now. Have a good day.